You remember the passage in John 4 we talked about. Yeshua answered and said to her, the Samaritan woman, if you knew the gift of God, who it is that says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water, supersized, big gulp. And you'll remember this theme we also saw in the previous chapter. While he was talking about being the bread of life, and he who comes to me will never hunger, he also gave the corollary. He who believes in me will never thirst. So we can think about chapter 6, the bread of life discourse, and the tabernacles or the Sukkot discourse. We could think of them as a 1-2 punch. That's the full meal deal. The bread, Yeshua, and the water, the Spirit, the Son and the Spirit together. But it only comes if you put your trust in him. He's only in communion with you, and we with him, if we put our trust in him. And you see this theology expressed in Isaiah 44. The Spirit and the people of Israel and the future promise that this is what's going to be coming. The Jewish people understood this was coming. And that was what was so surprising when Jesus has the moxie and the guts to say this publicly in the midst of the festival. We look at Isaiah 44, you see the structure. Hebrew parallelism where one line echoes the other. I will pour water. And the green corresponds to the next line, the green in the next line. The orange corresponds in one line to the orange in the next line. I will pour water on the thirsty land and streams on the dry ground, right? So water and streams, they parallel. It's very, very clear, right? Thirsty land, dry ground. Makes sense. Fits together very nicely. Parallel. Now here comes the parallel thought to that couplet. I will pour my Spirit upon your descendants, and my blessing on your offspring. The Spirit of God is parallel to the blessing of God. The descendants of Israel parallel to the offspring. So the water is given to the thirsty ground, i.e. the Spirit will be given to the descendants of the Jewish people. It is something that was built in from the time of Isaiah. Actually, I could argue that it goes back to the time of Moses, the idea of quenching your thirst through the Spirit of God, that need that we have instinctively, we're born with a need, a thirst that can only be quenched by the Messiah and his Spirit. And so it is in the midst of the water drawing, the trumpet blasting, the palm waving, the psalm chanting, the joy in the last day, that Yeshua Christ, this amazing statement out in the temple. I love what he says. I really have a hard time getting over what he said. Let anyone who's thirsty come to me. And the one who believes in me, let him drink. Out of the believer's heart will flow rivers of living water. So Yeshua center stage, making a declaration, making a claim, unmistakable to all present, inviting the whole assembly of Israel, to the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, all 24 divisions of priests and Levites, the high priest, Josephus Caiaphas himself. Here's the invitation. Come and drink of the living water, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. You want the Holy Spirit? I'm your water boy. Who'll come to me? Imagine, these are the crowds today below the Temple Mount. Imagine the crowds and the response in the time of Yeshua. It is without question that Yeshua is boldly declaring to all present that he is Mashiach. He's saying, if you want the Ruach HaKodesh, there's only one conduit, it's me. If I want Kentucky Fried Chicken, I can only go to one guy. Who's that? Colonel Sanders. If I want living water, I can only come to one guy. Yeshua HaMashiach. The Ruach HaKodesh proceeds through him. Our salvation proceeds through faith in him. That, my friends, is one very large matzah ball to lob out in the temple courts on this particular holiday.